The 1960s were an explosion of musical creativity. Each week brought a new discovery, a new sound that challenged everything that came before. But not every masterpiece managed to survive the test of time. Some of the most innovative and exciting songs of the decade simply vanished from the radio, forgotten by classic hit playlists. What makes these songs even more fascinating are the stories behind them. Mysterious deaths that were never solved. Bands that exploded and disappeared before even enjoying their success. Sonic experiments so ahead of their time that they took decades to be appreciated. Controversies involving the music mafia. Artists who created something brilliant and then simply evaporated. Today, we're diving into 12 hits that reached the top of the charts but somehow slipped through the cracks of history. These aren't just forgotten songs. They're time capsules that capture the true essence of the 60s. Away from the spotlight of the Beatles and Rolling Stones, get ready to rediscover treasures that deserve to be back on your radar. Number 12, I Fought the Law, the Bobby Fuller 4. Of 1966, a song climbs rapidly up the charts, reaching number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100. I Fought the Law becomes an instant anthem. The Bobby Fuller 4 are at their peak. Sold-out shows, television appearances. The future looks too bright to be true. And it was. Just 6 months after the success, Bobby Fuller was found dead inside his mother's car, parked in front of his Hollywood apartment. His body was drenched in gasoline. There was dried blood around his mouth and chin. His clothes, normally impeccable, were disheveled and soaked in fuel. In his right hand, he clutched a siphon hose connected to a gasoline can. The Los Angeles police didn't waste time. Suicide, they declared. Case closed. But people close to Bobby knew something was terribly wrong. The body was already in advanced rigor mortis, suggesting he had been dead for hours before the car appeared in the parking lot. If he died somewhere else, who drove the vehicle back? And why would someone who had just achieved the success he'd always dreamed of take his own life? The story gets even darker. Bobby was deeply dissatisfied with his manager, Bob Keane, who added syrupy arrangements to his songs without permission and pushed him to become a solo pop singer. Fuller wanted to return to Texas and rebuild his musical empire away from Hollywood. He had scheduled a crucial meeting to resolve the band's future. The night before that meeting, Bobby received a mysterious phone call from people from New York that left him visibly disturbed. He left the apartment and never returned alive. Here's where things really explode. Bob Keane, Fuller's manager, had just signed an exclusive distribution deal with Roulette Records, a label controlled by Morris Levy, known as the godfather of the American music business, for his organized crime connections. Rumors circulated that Keane had $1 million insurance policy on Fuller, and there's more. Keane also managed Richie Valens, who died in the famous 1959 plane crash, and Sam Cooke, found dead under equally questionable circumstances in 1964. 3 artists, 3 controversial deaths, 1 manager in common. Decades later, the official cause of Fuller's death was changed from suicide to accident, but the family never accepted that version. The case remains unsolved, one of rock history's greatest unresolved tragedies. And I Fought the Law gained a prophetic and frightening meaning that no one could have predicted. Number 11. Time of the Season. The Zombies, Imogen creating a masterpiece and not being around to witness its success. That's the story of the Zombies. When Time of the Season was released in 1968, the band had already broken up. They had recorded the album Odyssey and Oracle months earlier, pouring all their creativity into one last desperate attempt. But the label barely paid attention. The record was released without any fanfare, and the Zombies moved on with their lives. Then something extraordinary happened. A DJ in the Philippines, halfway around the world, started playing Time of the Season. The response was immediate. American radio stations caught the wave. The song began climbing the charts, eventually reaching number 3 in the United States. Rod Argent's hypnotic keyboard work creates an almost supernatural atmosphere. Colin Blunstone's ethereal vocals float over the instrumentation like psychedelic smoke. The mysterious, almost otherworldly quality perfectly captured the experimental spirit of the late 60s. But the Zombies were no longer together to enjoy it. There was no celebratory tour, no television show appearances. Just the song, existing alone, making its way through the ether while its creators pursued separate careers. The irony is brutal. They created something that sounded like nothing else on the radio. A genuine piece of psychedelic art that would influence generations of progressive rock musicians. But success came too late, like a ghost visiting an abandoned house. What makes Time of the Season even more special is that its success was completely organic. There was no marketing campaign, no powerful manager pushing the song. It was discovered by chance, half a world away, by someone who simply recognized something special. Sometimes the best songs find their audience in the most unlikely ways. Number 10. Dirty Water. The Standells. Long before punk rock existed, the Standells were creating raw and aggressive music that predicted the genre's arrival by a decade. Dirty Water was released in 1966 and became an unlikely anthem for Boston, despite being written by Ed Cobb, a Los Angeles songwriter who had never visited the city. The garage rock, sound and rebellious attitude made the song a favorite among young people who felt disconnected from the polished pop dominating the airwaves. Dick Dodd's sneering vocals and the band's primitive but effective instrumentation created something that felt authentically dangerous in an era of manufactured teen idols. The lyrics are notoriously vague about Boston, mentioning only the Charles River and frustrated lovers wandering the city. But something in the dirty, irreverent energy of the song resonated with Boston's working-class identity. The phrase, "I love that dirty water," became an urban battle cry, celebrating the city with all its imperfections. What's fascinating about Dirty Water is how it became more famous over time. Initially just a regional hit that barely scratched the national charts, the song gained new life in the 80s when Boston sports teams adopted it as their victory song. Every time the Red Sox win at Fenway Park or the Bruins triumph at TD Garden, Dirty Water explodes through the speakers. Decades passed before people really appreciated what the Standells had created. They were doing punk before the word existed, channeling teenage anger and raw energy into 3 perfect minutes of unapologetic rock and roll. The authenticity they captured took generations to be fully understood. Number 9. Pictures of Matchstick Men, Status Quo. Before they became known for their 3-chord boogie rock, Status Quo created this psychedelic gem in 1968 that sounded nothing like what they'd do afterward. Francis Rossi was just 18 when he wrote this haunting track that would become the band's only major hit in the United States. The distinctive tremolo guitar effect in the song's dreamlike quality made it stand out in an era already filled with experimental sounds. Reaching number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100 was particularly notable because British psychedelic acts often struggled to find audiences across the Atlantic. The track proved that innovation could come from unexpected sources, a young band from London who would soon abandon psychedelia entirely. What's remarkable about Pictures of Matchstick Men is how it captured a specific moment in musical history. The late 60s were a time when bands were pushing boundaries, and the song represents the perfect marriage of pop accessibility and psychedelic experimentation. The floating vocals, swirling guitar effects, and surreal lyrics created something that sounded simultaneously strange and captivating. But Status Quo never tried to repeat this formula. They quickly pivoted to a straightforward rock and roll sound and never looked back. It's as if they captured lightning in a bottle once and then decided to chase different thunder. The song remains a testament to the creative possibilities that existed during this revolutionary period, a glimpse of a path not taken. Number 8. Come On Down to My Boat. Every Mother's Son. The year was 1967, and optimism was in the air. Every Mother's Son, a New York-based group, perfectly captured that spirit with Come On Down to My Boat, a gentle invitation to escapism and togetherness that reached number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100. The nautical theme and melodious harmonies reflected the period's fascination, with both folk traditions and psychedelic imagery. Written by Jerry Goldstein and Wes Farrell, the song represented the commercialization of the folk movement, but in the best possible way. It proved that meaningful music could also be completely accessible. There's an innocence in the song that's almost touching when you consider what was to come. In 1967, the counterculture still believed that peace, love, and understanding weren't just possible, but inevitable. Come On Down to My Boat captures that moment before the darker realities of the late 60s set in, before the killings and disillusionment. Every Mother's Son never managed to replicate that success, becoming another classic example of a one-hit wonder. But Come On Down to My Boat endures as a perfect time capsule of 1967's optimistic spirit, a frozen moment when anything seemed possible if you just got in the boat and sailed away. Number 7. I Had Too Much to Dream. Last Night. The Electric Prunes. The Electric Prunes created one of the most distinctive sounds of 1966 with this psychedelic masterpiece. The innovative use of distortion and effects, particularly the fuzz-wah guitar sound, made the song unlike anything else on the radio. It reached number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100, proving that experimental music could find a mainstream audience. Producer Dave Hassinger encouraged the band to push sonic boundaries, and the result was a track that sounded like it came from the future. The combination of conventional pop structure with radical production techniques created something that was simultaneously accessible and genuinely innovative. The song became a blueprint for psychedelic rock production. The title itself is provocative, suggesting experiences beyond normal reality without being explicit. In 1966, when consciousness was expanding and young people were questioning everything, a song about having too much to dream resonated deeply. The lyrics are deliberately ambiguous, allowing listeners to project their own meanings. The Electric Prune story is typical of many 60s bands. Brief success followed by obscurity. But I Had Too Much to Dream, Last Night, left an indelible mark on rock music. Its influence can be heard in everything from punk rock to alternative music, proving that innovation often comes from unexpected places. The band may have disappeared, but the sound they created echoed through decades. Number 6. Incense and Peppermints. Strawberry Alarm Clock. When this song reached number 1 in 1967, it perfectly captured the psychedelic spirit of the Summer of Love. Strawberry Alarm Clock, a Los Angeles band originally called the 60’s, created a track that was both commercially successful and authentically trippy. The swirling organ, mysterious vocals, and enigmatic lyrics made the song the perfect soundtrack for an era of expanding consciousness. But what many listeners didn't know was that the distinctive lead vocals weren't performed by any band member, but rather by a session musician named Greg Munford. This revelation adds another layer of mystery to an already mysterious song. The phrase, incense and peppermints itself, evokes the aromas and sensations of hippie culture without being explicit about anything. It's sensory poetry that allows for multiple interpretation. The production creates a swirling soundscape that seems to transport the listener to another plane of existence. Incense and Peppermints represented the mainstream acceptance of psychedelic music. Its success proved that American audiences were ready for music that challenged conventional structures and embraced experimental sounds. The song remains one of the most authentic expressions of the psychedelic era's exploratory and optimistic spirit. A frozen moment when popular music was genuinely willing to take risks. Number 5. Kind of a Drag. The Buckingham Chicago's contribution to the British invasion came in the form of the Buckinghams, whose Kind of a Drag reached number 1 in 1967. The smooth harmonies and polished production showed that American bands could compete with their British counterparts without simply copying their sound. The track's sophisticated arrangement and Dennis Tufano's emotional vocals created something that was both commercially appealing and musically substantial. Producer James William Guercio, who would later work with Chicago, helped craft a sound that was distinctly American while incorporating the best elements of the British invasion. The title may suggest a sad ballad, but there's an uplifting quality in the execution. The Buckinghams understood that you could sing about heartbreak and still make people want to dance. This duality, sadness wrapped in joyful sound, was a trademark of much of the best 60s pop. The Buckinghams proved that regional scenes could produce national hits. Their success opened doors for other Midwest bands and showed that the music industry was becoming more democratized. You didn't need to be from London or Los Angeles to conquer the world. Kind of a Drag remains a perfect example of how local talent could achieve international success during the industry's most creative period. Number 4. Bend Me, Shape Me. The American Breed in 1967. The Chicago band The American Breed took a song written by Scott English and Larry Weiss and transformed it into an infectious anthem that reached number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. They merged soul and pop into something uniquely their own. The song's relentless energy and memorable hook made it perfect for late 60s dance floors. Gary Loizzo's powerful vocals and the band's tight arrangement created something that was both musically sophisticated and immediately accessible. The track proved that American bands were finding their own voice in the wake of the British invasion. Bend Me, Shape Me is about romantic surrender, about allowing another person to mold and transform you. There's something both vulnerable and celebratory about it. The repetition of the title becomes almost hypnotic, drilling into your brain and refusing to leave. The American Breed's success was part of a larger movement of regional American bands reclaiming their place in rock music. Their ability to combine different musical influences into something cohesive and exciting showed that innovation was happening everywhere, not just in the music industry's traditional centers. The song remains a testament to the creative vitality that existed beyond the main spotlight. Number 3. Green Tambourine. The Lemon Pipers, the year 1967, brought this unexpected gem from Ohio's Lemon Pipers. Green Tambourine reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, proving that psychedelic pop could come from anywhere. The distinctive sitar-like guitar sound and Eastern-influenced melody created something that was both exotic and accessible. Written by Paul Lika and Shelley Pins, the song represented the mainstream absorption of Indian musical influences that the Beatles had introduced to rock. The Lemon Pipers transformed these influences into something uniquely American, creating a track that captured the era's fascination with Eastern philosophy and music. The lyrics are simple but evocative. Drop your silver in my tambourine. There's something both innocent and slightly subversive about it, a request for contribution that could be interpreted in multiple ways. The shimmering instrumentation and cheerful vocals create an atmosphere of joyful celebration. The band's story reflects the volatile nature of 60's success. They achieved massive success with this single but struggled to follow it up, eventually disbanding as musical tastes shifted toward heavier sounds. Green Tambourine remains a perfect snapshot of 1967's optimistic and experimental spirit, a moment when pop music was genuinely willing to incorporate influences from around the world. Number 2. Happy Together. The Turtles. Nothing captured the pure joy of 60's pop better than the Turtles' Happy Together. Released in 1967, this perfect 3-minute song reached number 1 and became one of the decade's most enduring classics. Written by Gary Bonner and Alan Gordon, it proved that sophisticated songwriting and pure pop pleasure could coexist. The memorable melody, tight harmonies, and infectious optimism made it impossible to ignore. Howard Kaylan and Mark Volman's vocals perfectly conveyed the song's message of romantic bliss, while the band's precise arrangement showed that pop music could be both simple and sophisticated. What makes Happy Together so special is its timeless quality. While many 60s songs sound dated today, this track could have been recorded in any decade and still sound fresh. There's a purity in the melody and execution that transcends trends and fashions. It represents the 60s at their most optimistic, when love really did seem like all you needed. The song became a staple of weddings, commercials, and movie soundtracks. Its enduring popularity proves that sometimes the best music is that which does just one thing perfectly: makes you happy. There's no cynicism, no irony, just pure unadulterated joy captured in song form. Number 1. Na Na, Hey Hey, Kiss Him Goodbye. Steam. We close with one of the most bizarre stories of the 60s. When Na Na, Hey Hey, Kiss Him Goodbye reached number 1 in 1969, nobody knew that the band Steam was completely fabricated. They were just studio musicians assembled by producer Paul Leka, along with Gary DiCarlo and Dale Frashuer. When the song exploded, Leka had to quickly put together a real band called Steam to tour. But here's where it gets really ridiculous. That band broke up before they even started touring. Leka had to assemble another group just to hit the road. The song itself is irresistibly catchy. The chorus, na 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 na, hey 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 goodbye, became one of the most recognizable hooks in music history. Decades later, it would be adopted by stadium crowds worldwide, played whenever the home team wants to taunt the defeated opponent. What's fascinating is that Na Na Hey Hey Kiss Him Goodbye became more famous over time than when it was released. While Steam never managed another hit, this singular song achieved an immortality that few 60s hits accomplished. It re-entered the charts multiple times over the decades, introduced to new generations through sporting events and pop culture. It's fitting that this completely fabricated song, created by a band that technically didn't exist, became one of the era's most beloved and enduring songs. Sometimes the most authentic music comes from the most artificial circumstances. These 12 songs remind us that the 60s were about much more than just the superstars we remember today. Each week brought new discoveries, new sounds, new possibilities. These tracks captured specific moments in a decade of incredible change, from the early excitement of rock and roll's evolution to the psychedelic experimentation of the later years. What's remarkable about this collection is how it represents the true diversity of the 60s music scene. We had garage rockers from Boston singing about dirty water, psychedelic pioneers from Los Angeles creating soundscapes that still sound futuristic, folk rockers from everywhere in between crafting songs that spoke to universal human experiences. The decade wasn't just about the British invasion or the folk revival. It was about countless artists pushing boundaries and creating something new. Each song tells a story, not just about the artists who created them, but about the times that inspired them. They're snapshots of a generation that believed music could change the world. And maybe it did. These weren't just 3-minute pop songs. They were statements of identity, rebellion, love, and hope during one of the most turbulent and exciting decades in American history. The beauty of rediscovering these tracks is that they transport us back to a time when every song on the radio felt like a potential revelation. That sense of musical adventure and possibility is something we can still tap into today. Whether we lived through it the first time or are discovering it fresh, these forgotten masterpieces deserve to be heard again, and their stories deserve to be told.